guys, this is Cody. I am here in the TMP Habitat Mapping field map, and you can see here in kind of North County, San Diego, our 6 preserves that we're mapping with all of the old data. I have all my layers turned on. Here we can see some historical polygons where things were mapped and historical points of either invasives mapping or special status species mapping like Cooper's hawk. In the black here we have historical vegetation mapping, which sometimes it's mapped at the Oberbauer level. Most of the time it's actually mapped at the association level, which is really what we're looking for here because we are mapping for Western San Diego County Vegetation Classification Manual, which is very similar to the CDFW classification method, which relies on alliances and associations. So generally we will be mapping to the association level, and that's really the focus in the field. It's not so critical for you to map to the Oberbauer level because we will crosswalk between those two in GIS post-processing. But if you feel like you have confidence that you can do both in the field, go for it. But really the most important thing that you need to map is the association, which typically is already there in the historical vegetation layer for you. Here, for example, you can see the Ceanothus tomentosus association. And I already added a new veg point here in green. You can see this new veg point that I added, which is basically just the exact same Western SD VCM association. That would be in an instance where I come out in the field and I agree that this line work, this historical line work and the historical mapping is correct. So I am agreeing that the old polygon, which was Ceanothus tomentosus association, is still that. And so I have a veg point where I've mapped Ceanothus tomentosus association in the Western SD VCM scientific veg community dropdown. And just so you can see what those dropdowns look like, here they are. We've got all the associations here. You can search, you can do all that. And then again, you can add Oberbauer if you feel confident that you know what that Oberbauer community is in terms of crosswalking between the two. So let's try this new one to the next here together. We'd open this one up, right? This old community. Let's say we're standing down here in the corner of this preserve. Keep in mind we are not mapping in the buffers of the preserve. We're only mapping to the edges for this effort. But so for this polygon, I see, okay, Arctostaphylos glandulosa and Adenostoma fasciculatum. So manzanita and chamise. Let's say I'm standing here and I agree with that again. So I'm going to add a new veg point and we're going to go to Western SD VCM. I'm going to type in adenostoma. Oh, adenostoma. Okay, what's happening? Okay, I'm just going to look on the list here. Adenostoma fasciculatum. I'm scrolling down, right? We're looking for, we're actually looking for Arctostaphylos glandulosa, right? Arctostaphylos glandulosa, Adenostoma fasciculatum association. Boom. Once we have that, then you can maybe move on to Oberbauer. Please keep in mind too that with both of these, there are documents available to help you. You should have both of these documents kind of ready to go on your phone. Maybe even download it offline for where there's no service. But you can go and you can see, what are the rules for the Adenostoma fasciculatum alliance or association here, right? This is Platanus racemosa, Populus fremontii, Salix lasialepis association. It gives you rules on what the tree cover should be for certain species, things like that. Very similar to CDFW mapping. Once you decide there, you can then come over to Oberbauer if you're feeling like you want to spend time on this and get the Oberbauer mapping right in the field and not just rely on the crosswalk. You can come here. I always like to go down here and just search the species that I'm looking for in the document. So I can say find on page, right? Earlier we were looking for Arctostaphylos glandulosa, Arctostaphylos. So here we are, southern mixed chaparral, which is this the community that I would think actually crosswalks between the Arctostaphylos glandulosa Adenostoma fasciculatum association. That crosswalks to southern mixed chaparral really well, and I can read about that and I confirm that here, right? So then I'd go to Oberbauer and I would say southern mixed chaparral. And maybe I'd say it's granitic or something because I see big granite rocks in there, and I would read the description and understand that better. Boom. And I'd put my point down. Oh, put your point down after you update the point with your GPS, whatever. And there you go. Now you've just mapped. So that is mapping generally if you're not changing the old historical polygons. However, let's say you are mapping and you want to expand on an old polygon. So let's say this polygon here of Ceanothus tomatosus association, you wanted to expand on that in this area that I drew in green. You would just draw a green veg line, making sure it connects to the old vertices of, the old point to help our GIS people out. You'd draw that veg line, and then you'd add a new point in that area for Ceanothus tomatosus, right? And then you'd also make sure you would add that old Ceanothus tomatosus. You'd update the old point with Ceanothus tomatosus. So now you have two Ceanothus tomatosus association points in each of these areas, and clear old and new veg lines to help our GIS people understand what your mapping is supposed to be. You can also kind of straddle two existing polygons by using these veg lines to carve out areas which are maybe really unique, right? So imagine that this crude green line that I drew is kind of a unique community that I thought deserves to have its own kind of area here, and the historical mapping wasn't great. So I drew that line, right? It's over this existing black historical veg line, but that's okay, because all we have to do now is just update each half of this new set of polygons that I've created by just adding veg points. So I added a veg point here and I said I want that to be Ceanothus tomatosus, and then just make sure over here you say yes, that's also Ceanothus tomatosus. So clearly you can split things, you can extend off things, you can kind of have a lot of creativity here, even though we're kind of bound by some of the old mapping. Just make sure you use this sort of general approach to conduct our new mapping. And again, make sure old polygons have new dots. Old polygons have new dots, new veg points for us, even if you agree with the old mapping. So I think that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email me, call me, text me, whatever. Hopefully you enjoy mapping out there. Oh, and I also wanted to point out these incidental special status species mapping, invasives mapping, right? Those things will be done using these other layers, right? If you see a special status wildlife species directly, you can use, this wildlife point. If you see special status species plants or invasives, you'll use plant points and plant polygons, depending on, what type of a grouping or clustering or patch the species is in. And then obviously we have our survey complete here. So when you're done at the end of the day and you've surveyed all 160 of your acres for your team of 2, you would cover all that up and you would hit submit, and you would say, we're done with that area, so that the next survey team comes out and is able to see that and see clearly that that doesn't need to be done anymore. And again, I would highly recommend using these historical points and historical polygons so that you get a grip on what was previously mapped there in terms of special status species and invasives, and you can go back and review those areas and maybe see if those are still there. You'll see these 2 big preserves, they don't have any previous historical mapping for special status species or invasives. That's just the way it is, and we're going to have to sort of do that on our own. These ones do have the association level mapping though, You will note that this historical mapping, it can be in different kind of naming styles and conventions. Here you can see that the association level is in kind of common names for certain things. Oh, you know what? I'm kidding. It's just saying common names because when you map grassland types in Western SD VCM associations, there's sometimes common names for the grasses, but you can see over here we've got the associations for the quercuses. But there are some sites that don't have any association level mapping, and it's just pure Oberbauer. So keep that in mind. This one, right, is just southern cottonwood willow riparian forest. That's a very familiar veg type to those of us mapping in Oberbauer in San Diego. So we may have to sort of get more fine-tuned here and carve out greater association level mapping. But if you are surveying that area, feel free to contact me with questions if you're concerned about that. Anyways, hope this was helpful. Really just wanted to get across how we're going to map, how we're going to use these old veg polys and old sort of data to update the map with our new points and lines. And